Hi, welcome to Quartertone Harmony. I'm Kurt, and this episode I'm going to talk about using quartertones melodically. Much as conventional wisdom holds that quartertone chords will always sound bad, many with Western musical experience find that quartertone melodies often sound off. To Western ears, quartertone melodies often sound out of tune, or at least exotic. Now, with the quartertone chords, as I showed in my first video, applying basic microtonal theory quickly finds there are quite a few good and usable quartertone chords. But quartertone melodies, that's not so easy. At first, I agreed with the conventional way of thinking. But after a while, I started to notice that some quartertone melodies sounded better than others. And then I started to find quartertone melodies I actively liked, as well as rules for making them sound better to my ears. Now I've gotten to the point where, most of the time, I can make a quartertone melody into something I find acceptable. To be fair, using a fair amount of work. The sounds I get out of these are saucy, spicy sounds. They're not for your granddad's elevator music. But it has gotten to the point where if you're looking for something fresh and different, it's going to be pretty useful. I found a total of 16 guidelines so far. 4 from conventional 12-tone harmony, which I find particularly useful, and 12 which are specific to quartertone. I'm calling them guidelines rather than rules, precisely because you don't have to use every one every time, just enough for the sound you want. You can even use them in reverse to make something sound spicier. There's a lot to get into, so let's just dive right into that list. Guideline number 1, use smoother intervals. I found different quartertone intervals differ in smoothness. My ranking from smoothest to roughest, and it's very approximate, is smoothest, 7 quartertones. 7 quartertones is a blues third, and an interval we're relatively used to. Next, although this is almost a tie with 7, 1 quartertone. 1 quartertone is a minimal step and can sound like a bent note or a passing note. Then 5 quartertones. 5 quartertones is rougher, but it's close to an inverted 7th harmonic, and there are some other things you can use to make it sound better. For example, in my quartertone boogie woogie, I used it both as a harmonic 7th and to split the 4th at the same time. Then 11 quartertones. Something close to 11 quartertones is sometimes used as a bent note in blues and bebop, but it's a relatively large step and it tends to stand out. Then 3 quartertones. 3 quartertones has a strong Orientalist feel to it and is difficult to use in a Western context, but sometimes it works. And roughest, 9 quartertones. Just as 9 quartertones tends to disrupt chords, it tends to disrupt melody lines. But even there, not always. Guideline number 2, prefer lower pitches. For some reason, quartertone intervals tend to sound better at lower pitches. I have some ideas for why, but that's for a future video. Here's an example to demonstrate guides 1 and 2 at the same time. It's a brief section with a 5 quartertone shift, then a 1 quartertone shift, and a couple of 7 quartertone shifts. Here it is played in the treble register, where it's pretty rough. That 5 quartertone shift sounds a bit off, and then the 1 and 7 quartertone shifts are better, but still kind of strong. Now play the whole thing 2 octaves lower. Now the 5 quartertone shift is almost fine. and the 7 quarter tone and 1 quarter tone shifts go right on by. So 1 and 7 are better than 5 in both registers, and the lower register is better for all the steps. Guideline number 3, no back and forth. Remember, the quarter tone scale can be thought of as 2 12-tone fields separated by a quarter tone. When you make a quarter tone shift, you shift from one field to another. If you follow with another, you've now got one note alone in a field and it can sound out of place. A solution to this is to follow a quarter tone step with one or more 12-tone steps. That way, you can put the phrase back into one field by changing just one note, and no one note sounds out of place. It's kind of like the dinner party, every note must have a friend rule, except for melody. Guideline number 4, shift while ascending or descending. When you shift from ascending to descending in a melody line, the note where you shift tends to stand out, and that makes a quarter tone shift there stand out more as well. Here's a sample to demonstrate guides 3 and 4 at the same time. Here's one note in my quarter tone swing piece, which sounded a bit off to me. You'll notice it breaks both these guidelines. Applying both these guidelines, which I figured out since I wrote this, smooths it out a little bit. Guideline number 5, shift along with chords. When the harmony changes, that creates a reason for a shift that can make a quarter tone step sound more acceptable. I use this all the time, going from a chord to its quarter tone dominant and back again. Guideline number 6, use strong chord progressions. Quarter tone circles are the standard here. For example, in the quarter tone circle of sevenths, there's even a bunch of 3 quarter tone shifts. But the strength of the circle just pulls you along. You have to have those 3 quarter tone shifts for a symmetrically repeating circle, and that makes them sound more acceptable. Guideline number 7, use diminished 7th chords and its relatives. For some reason, a diminished 7th chord helps smooth out a quarter tone shift. This also applies to mixed field chords, which can work as quarter tone alterations of a diminished 7th chord, notably the harmonic diminished 7th, and especially the harmonic 13th, the magic chord. Here's a bit from Dance from a Quiet Night to demonstrate that. That breaks guides 1 and 3, plus some more I haven't even gotten to yet. But it works because it's using a harmonic 13th. And it really couldn't work until I did put in that harmonic 13th. Guideline number 8, you can get away with more coming back to the current field. At any point in most basically tonal music, the music will be in one or the other of the 2 fields. Trivially, the field of the key if it's in one. You can get away with more coming back to that field after a brief excursion than you can when stepping away. I won't play it again, but that was operational in that last bit. The melody line steps out of the current field using 5 quarter tones and then moves back using the rougher 3 quarter tone step. Guideline number 9, step down when moving out of the current field. For some reason, steps out of the current field often sound smoother when they are going down than they are if they are going up. For example, in the D shadowed in the mood cadence, it sounds better with the melody line going down than it does with the melody line going up. I'm not the first one to notice this. Vishnegradsky mentioned it in the Manual for Quarter Tone Harmony, although he restricts it to ornamentals. Guideline number 10, Use the power of time. When we listen to music, we don't hear it note by note. We are always reinterpreting what we already heard in terms of what we are hearing now. A quarter tone shift that might sound rough by itself sounds better if it's leading somewhere. For example, in that D shadowed in the mood cadence, it doesn't sound as good if it doesn't go where it's leading. But even there, you can smooth it out again if you do finally go where it's leading. Guideline number 11. Use blue notes. Some bent notes are more common than others in blues. Notably, the neutral third, the raised fourth, the lowered fifth, and the raised seventh. I have a link in the comments to a video that discusses this. Those notes tend to sound more acceptable than other transfield notes, especially when first stepping out of a field. For example, stepping out to the neutral third sounds a little bit better than stepping out to the half-sharp second. Guideline number 12. Use passing notes. If you are facing a rough shift like 3/4 tones, or a lone quarter tone field note, try putting in a passing note. It works best if it makes sense in the preceding or following chords, but even if it doesn't, sometimes it can help. For example, here's something I was working on. I thought that sounded a little bit rough, so I put in a passing note. And that makes it a little bit better. And finally, here are 4 guidelines from standard 12-tone harmony, which I find particularly useful. Guideline number 13. Use contrary motion. Well, of course, what did you expect? I'm not the first one to talk about this either. Here between the lines has already talked about it. Guideline number 14. Go fast in the rough spots. Again, everybody knows this one, but don't forget to use it. Guideline number 15. Put quarter tone shifts, especially rougher ones, into inner parts. If you're using a sequence of mixed field chords, try putting the first shifts in the inner parts and having them pull the outer parts along. And finally, guideline number 16, use parallel thirds and sixths. I found this one to be particularly useful lately. I use it all over the place in Dance for a Quiet Night. You'll notice guidelines number 3 here. The field shifted notes are occurring in pairs. And 14 and 15 here, the field shifted notes are occurring in 16th notes. And here, the alto steps to the other field, and then the soprano follows to make a third. All right, that's the list for now. This is by no means everything about writing smooth quarter tone melodies. I'm finding new stuff all the time. But I hope this will still help some of you smooth out or spice up your melody lines. And for those of you who are just listening, maybe understand why some sections in quarter tone sound better than others. Till next time, keep making music and keep making a difference.